It's time for today's 3-Stock Lunch, where we do 3 different trades, 3 stock stories, why they matter to you. Here to do the honors is Michael Landsberg, CIO at Landsberg Private Wealth Management. Michael, welcome. Let's start with Verizon. They're actually higher today after posting their strongest quarterly wireless subscriber growth in nearly 5 years, and they only get a 1.5% boost. What do you do with the stock?
I don't like the stock at all. I mean, I look back, 2007, the iPhone came out. 2025, we got the iPhone 16. Verizon stock price is the same. $40 then, $40 now. It's just not a stock that we want to own. It's kind of like your grandparents' dividend stock. I don't think it's a name that you want to keep. If you have it, sell it. If you don't own it.
It's crazy. They spend all this money. They do all these things for us, and we're just like, forget you. All right, so what about Texas Instruments? They're down 7% today for the worst day in 3 years after disappointing guidance below estimates. What ails this one, and would you pick it up here?
And the issue really is they're not in the cool part of tech. I mean, semiconductors, as you talked about before, generative AI is kind of where the place to be is, and that's where all the growth is. They have very little exposure there. Multiple on Texas Instruments is not cheap. So I get if you don't have a lot of AI exposure, but I shouldn't be paying over 30 times for next year's earnings when earnings aren't going to grow much. There's better places to be in semi with exposure expensive than this. So that's where I'd be. Obviously, it's down for a good reason because margins aren't there, but I'd stay away. All
right, so a sell and a sell. So this one better be a buy. Oh, and it's Twilio, up 20% today. Biggest gain since 2020. They had better than expected forecast ahead of their earnings for this name. We don't even talk about it that much. What do you do here?
I'm going to give it a hold, and here's why. The stock was $400 in 2021, and they've gotten kind of crushed. The issue has never been revenue growth. They've had revenue growth for like 11 straight years. It just seems like management's never talked about making any money. It's never been profitable. This time, actually, we're hearing discussions of profitability and margins, and I think that's going to be exciting about the stock and where it can go. We still think you can wait a quarter or two to make sure that it's actually real action, not just talk. But obviously at 140, 137, it's got a lot of room before it gets back to 392. So I think you can wait a quarter or two. But if it continues to do well, margins get better, I think it's something you could pick up down the road.
Anything you're picking up ahead of earnings next week? The big names, the biggies?
I think the biggies, most people have a lot of exposure to the biggies. I mean, so when we look at some of those names, I think you've got those. I mean, we've been exciting. What's been happening with bank earnings has been a good tell. And I think big tech continues to be the place to be. I think you can broaden your exposure, not just to the Mag 7, but some of those other names I think have been driving this rally more recently.
Michael, appreciate it. Michael Landsberg, Bennett Private Wealth.